I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBN, we're exploring the chilling pages of an amazing book. It is called The Mausoleum, and it is written by a terrific author by the name of Byron Roy Bierwag. He has penned an intense supernatural thriller that blurs the lines between the underworld and the living, centered around a ghostly little girl named Claire and a horror novelist haunted by childhood memories. This story grips readers with its eerie plot, demonic serpent, and rising tension. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Byron, thank you so much for joining me here today.
It is a pleasure for sure.
It is a great book that you've written. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. It's very eerie, it's very original. How did you come up with the idea? What inspired you to create the dark world within the mausoleum?
The inspiration for that actually came from just memories that I had of little things that I saw along the way as a child that I grew up in the town that I grew up in here in northern Nevada. Um, Kind of wanted to use that as a basis point for the setting, but not completely to go off of that entirely. So the setting itself is based around that town, but there are some differences. Obviously, like the volcano in the background that's close to there, I kind of changed that and made it a little bit closer. Um, because there really is no volcano over there, at least not active.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
so a lot of it came from just childhood memories. I wanted to write a book about my own personal emotions and feelings and things I went through growing up.
Great, great. Well, you've done a great job with this. It's very inventive, based, of course, on some facts, some fiction blended together. Coming up with the character of Claire, tell us about how you came up with her.
That one was a little bit tricky actually, because I wanted something to be terrifying, and everybody usually uses like, the usual like demonic presences, your like actual ghostly beings that come in and they haunt, people who have been brutally murdered, things like that. And I wanted something that would probably stick out, be unique. So I decided to go with a little girl that had passed away before her time, and then kind of like refused to move on and just stuck around and decided to haunt the area where she was growing up and passed away. And I thought that was the perfect fitting for it.
Well, it's very compelling, it's very original and very haunting, no doubt, and very effective. Talk to us about the serpent. The serpent seems to symbolize power and control in the story, right?
Yes, the serpent is, it's kind of like a combination of something fantasy like a basilisk from like say the Harry Potter books or something similar to that, or even something from like the Wizards of the Coast books from Dragonlance, things like that. Creatures that you would come across that, could kill with a stare or something like that. But I also thought serpent, well, let's take it a little bit, be a little bit more biblical with it. And in the Bible, Satan is referred to as the serpent. So I thought, why not just make this basilisk be referred to as a serpent more than a basilisk, but could still have the power to kill with a glare for anybody who's living.
It was very effective. You did a great job with it. Let's talk about Brian and his return to Wilmington and why it's so significant.
Well, Brian was actually centered around myself.
Mhm.
A lot of the same characteristics, thoughts, emotions, feelings that I had at the time I was writing it. I wanted to get across things that I was feeling, things that I was still kind of learning and going through at the time. Um, his hauntings that he has, his memories were actually my memories within the book. I just wanted to try and point that out. Like, this is how I remember things. but not 100%. I did change some things up, I'm sure, because I don't quite remember everything that far back. But yeah, Brian is centered around myself though. Very close to my heart.
Childhood trauma plays a role in the story as well. Tell us about that and why it was important to depict that in the narrative.
I think the importance behind it would be that everybody goes through some sort of trauma in their life in one form or another. Sometimes with many of us, I'm sure we went through a lot of childhood trauma, things that we witnessed, things that we weren't quite sure were actually happening by chance. Maybe seeing things that weren't actually there. Um, but I think a lot of it is, for instance, like we've all had a loved one, parent, grandparent, or sibling possibly pass away when we're a child, and that is a traumatic event in our lives. And so I figured, why not throw something like that in there to try and kind of captivate the audience a bit more and actually use that as a progression point for the child Annie in her story to help her grow and move on and progress in her story in her life.
Absolutely. What was your favorite scene to write and why?
I think my favorite scene to write was probably the close to the ending point, I think, after they've come out of the mausoleum and they see this angel appear before them with Annie's mother standing there before them to finally get to say her goodbye to complete it for
Mm.
that purpose. And then to point out that this um sarcophagus has been moved above ground from the mausoleum to above ground, making a change in the cemetery with a new plaque heading, new wording on it. I think that was my favorite scene because it was more of a happy scene, and more of a delightful scene full of light. It shows that point of moving from the darkness into the light at the same time. And I think that's something metaphorically speaking that we could all use in our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very effective. Have you envisioned this book as a movie or a series of films?
I have. Actually, when I was writing it, I wanted to write it in a way that would be easily adapted into a screenplay to make it easier to go from being a novel into a movie or a television series or something along those lines. I think that's what really makes it effective for
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, it's very visual, your writing. You really get a feel of being there, and I could see it easily adapted into a screenplay as well. So, Hollywood, if you're listening, here's a book that's ready to go. Let me ask you this. Who are your influences? What other writers do you like, or perhaps you're inspired by film? Tell us about your inspiration for the story when it comes to standing on the shoulders of others, if you will.
Ooh, that is a really good question. Thank you for asking that.
Sure.
Um, I actually recently just was asked this from somebody who my wife was selling something to at the time. And I explained it to him. I was like, well, the idea of the horror novelist returning to his hometown came up from watching Stephen King's Salem's Lot, if you will. The horror novelist who purchased the mansion in the town and then he finds out it's full of vampires. And I'm like, why not do something similar to that, but change it up and make it my own story? So it's not the same. Think part of it is Supernatural. The show Supernatural. I actually fell in love with that show. It's got a lot of good points, good stories behind it. But I also started watching that after I wrote the book, and I didn't realize how connected they could actually be either. So I think that was a really good turning point. Another couple more would be like Riverdale on the CW when it was playing. Nancy Drew is another one, the mystery where she solves crimes and things like that. I think those are really good connecting points to it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, those are all great inspirational sources, and I think you've gleaned the best of it all, yet kept your work very original. Any more adventures for Brian and the folks in the book? Are you thinking about any sequels or anything?
I actually do have a sequel written.
Hmm.
It is ready to be sent to a publisher. I've just been waiting until the right time, hoping this one takes off before I send it in to get it published and out there and visible to the public. People waiting for the sequel. I know some people have been waiting for it for at least 10 years since it was originally published. And so I'm hoping to get that out soon, hopefully by Christmas this year is my goal for that.
Wonderful, wonderful. What is the takeaway for your readers? Just to be entertained, or is there a little message there as well? Tell us a little bit about that.
There is a little message in there, and I think the message really comes out in his unusual church attendance, which is when Brian goes to the church, the LDS church there in the town, and he speaks to the attendees, the members there, about what's been happening there in that small little town, unusual things happening. Um, some people have been dying, things like that. And his whole purpose was to point out that fear really has no place in anything. That if they're fearful, then they may as well just, stop trying to move on and give up because fear is really the enemy of all things. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
and
it's a
the idea was to try and use it as angels and demons. Like there's this angelic and demonic war going on, spiritual
Mhm.
warfare going on all around us. And I wanted to bring that out and bring that to people's attention. And that's actually in that chapter. It's one of the things that he says is we have to pick a side basically. Either we stand with the angels, we stand with God, or we stand with the demons and Satan. And a lot of people, they are so, I guess, blind to what's really going on in the world, to what's really happening. And I wanted to use that message to throw that message in there so people could hopefully think about it and maybe turn to things and do their research about things.
Well, it's a powerful message and a powerful book. The name of the book we've been talking about today is The Mausoleum. It is a haunting and imaginative tale that'll keep you turning the pages deep into the night. Byron, thank you so much for joining me here today.
It is a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. And thank you again for inviting me.
Great having you on the show. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I appreciate your insight, your wisdom, and your great talent. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.